Just gonna let myself in.
Oh no! You alright there, buddy?
So let me get this straight. You have a crazy dude telling you to review comics.
Yep.
You don't want to do the comics. So he keeps spamming you with mails 24/7 for an entire month. You do the thing,
Yep.
and now he's asking you to review a different comic. So what's the problem with that? Oh. Probably gonna be that Ebola.
Yeah, I know, right? Like maybe Ebola, maybe it's anthrax, maybe it's a fucking bomb. I mean, people are crazy. Maybe it's a horse head. I don't fucking know.
Maybe not a horse's head. I mean, look at the size of the box. You got the size of a horse.
Not the fucking problem, Simon.
Alright, but just remember, no matter what he sends you, no matter what he says, what he does, no matter how creepy, clingy, or even violent he might be, just remember one thing, and one thing only. Don't ever call me for help.
I'm so happy to have you in my life, Simon.
Yeah, I know. I'm a regular peach!
Did he just come to steal my beer? Fuck, we're reviewing it.
And I'm ready to run over my enemies. Feel the power, baby, just move back. Victory's mine, 'cause I got the fight, will, hustle, kill. Baby, it's the wall, I'm showing you who's real. There's everything is real, 'cause I'm ready for the thrill. Hungry like a wolf, I'm going in for the kill.
Okay, here's the thing. If you followed my channel for some time, you know that Luke McKay, magnificent handsome bastard as he is, sent me a bunch of his comics for me to review. Now, I'm not gonna beat around the bush. Some people out there might think that this can be considered bribing. After all, I've done little to nothing but push Dreamkeeper, Sunstone and Uberquest, which have all sent me stuff too. The truth is rather simple, really. I just happen to be blessed with the fact that the people who send me stuff are coincidentally also amazing artists and authors. And trust me, no one got more angry about the whole Zoe Quinn review thingy than I did, so trust me, I hate when people, are biased because they're friends with people. This one, however, is a toughie, most of all because I got both the fact that Luke sent me these books and a drawing of me, has done commissions for me, and has worked on the Rooster Teeth comics, of which I was a huge fan before I even started making these videos. So I got all of this shit and I have to try and not be biased. The thing is though that the best thing you can do for someone who creates stuff is be honest with them. If you keep telling someone they're great and without fault, you're gonna end up with people like Andrew Dobson. So yeah, I just wanna let you guys know that I will not let my opinion of a comic sway just because I like or dislike the person behind them. After all, you didn't see me lower the score for Project Second after Leoria and had my video taken down either. Though it's not like it could get much lower. Anyway. The point I'm getting to is that no one is more aware of my opinions possibly being affected by the acts these amazing artists and authors do for me than me. But just know that I'm also aware that the best thing you can do for these guys, in return, is be honest and let them know where they can improve. With that said, you'll have to excuse me. I have to go make room for the big bag of money that Luke is sending me. Balls to That is a webcomic created by Luke McKay as a side project, his main focus being Rooster Teeth Comics. The comic updates 3 times a week and has thus far over 500 strips and is hosted on the Button Mash homepage and has been going since June the 8th, 2009. The name Balls to That comes from Luke McKay saying it all the time, and when he had problems naming his comic, he was told, why not just call it Balls to That? And here we are. It sure as balls a better name than the webcomic relief. I mean, have you tried googling webcomic relief? You get a page for hurricane victims. What, you never googled yourself?
Tracy, you do know that Googling yourself means looking yourself up on the internet.
I did not know that. That explains why Liz Lemon was so cool the other day. Liz Lemon, you mind if I Google myself in your office?
Sure, Tracy.
Can I use your computer?
How else are you gonna do it?
The comic follows Balls, who is insane, and the nurse Mustard, who might just be equally as insane. And that's about it. Woo! That's that working day done. No, but really, that's all there is to the actual premise. This is kind of where I'm having both issues and a lot of respect for the comic. Cause at first, let's talk about Balls being insane, cause it seems that the comic, well, doesn't. What I mean is that sometimes Balls is in heavy confinement and other times he's yachting around on the street. Now, this is where I know perfectly well that this is my personal taste coming into play, and it's not just straight up bad. I, for example, prefer consistency, no matter what the medium. I know fully well this is just something I like, and if you had that here, you couldn't do half of the strips this comic has, cause sometimes it needs Balls to be in confinement, and other it needs him to be out in the open. What I gotta respect though is just how much Luke manages to get out of this really simple premise. It's just 2 characters being crazy, and crazy about each other, and the stuff they get up to. And it's amazing. It's kinda how you guys are able to make all these different versions of Ben. You take something that has little to nothing in it and you just go crazy. It's nuts! The comic is not supposed to be taken serious, which the comic manages to prove many times with either what's being said or done, or heck even worn. I mean, 5 pages in, Balls gets shot by a little boy and it's never brought up again. Which brings me to a point I want to make about this comic. Read the later ones. This comic switches back and forth between one-off strips and actual story plot strips, which can sometimes be a little jarring, cause you don't know whether or not this has any importance and will carry over. Having no clear idea whether or not something will carry over, it sometimes leaves you going, wait, that had no importance at all? And then sometimes later it'll refer to that thing you thought was just a one-off to be actual plot related for a different joke. Safe to say, this doesn't work out well. It's kinda like watching a movie, where half of what you see has nothing to do with the actual plot. The tone of the comic will also ever so often change. Like, most of the time you'll get a bunch of silly, happy-go-lucky joking strips, and you're reading through them ever so often, having a laugh, and then suddenly the comic will throw you for a loop, throwing some either romantic or sad in your face. Like we covered before, this will actually work really well for these particular scenes. Like we covered in the Jack review, you gotta have ups before you can have downs for it to work properly. It's something known as juxtaposition, which is to place something together for comparison or contrast. The problem here being that at the beginning, you can tell this is not intentional. It's like button mashing in fighting games. Ever so often it'll work, most of the time it won't, and it's not actual skill. Especially not if you're playing Eddie or Krista, you cheap fuck. My favorite part of this comic is when it does a story arc. Be it Balls turning into a kaiju or Mustard saving Balls' life from a deadly disease. I really think the comic would be far more popular if it focused more on these stories, cause with how creative Luke is, the comic literally goes all over the place and there's so many opportunities to have fun and joke about the things no one ever has been able to touch on, and thus far we've only seen few hints of that. I mean, we got such an amazing cast of characters and such an incredible style of art. Just put these guys on, say, a space station, lean back and watch the mayhem happen. Maybe it's just me who likes stories in my comics, but when I read those parts I could hardly put the comic down and I was laughing my ass off. Also, I'm gonna share some, let's call it, comic sales techniques. Now, one thing is having people look at your comic, but you gotta remember that there's a little over 2 million webcomics out there. Why should they stick with yours? Now, one thing you can do is do a great one-off strip. As an example, you obviously think of Terminator when I say hasta la vista. Now, imagine if you made a joke or a statement or anything in that one-off strip that made other people either link it to others or quote it to others. Suddenly they'll relate your comic to that one thing and can easier share it by word of mouth or linking the comic. That's one way. Another way is creating a narrative. Say I threw a chain at you. Your first instinct would be to find out what's at the end of this chain. It's the same if you watch an episode in the middle of a series. If the episode is good enough, you want to find out what led up to that point, and if that part was good enough, you'll want to find out what happened later, and thus you're hooked. And boom, suddenly you got a steady reader. I'll be brutally honest, I came across Sunstone when I was browsing porn. And we all know how that went. This is another one of those moments where I wish I could change a comic for the better. One of those moments where I go, if it had been up to me, I would blah blah blah. I would have loved nothing more than for Luke to make Balls to Death a romantic comedy. You think that's a weird thing to say? Then you've clearly not seen what Luke ever so often pulls out of this comic. I talked about it before, but those serious moments we talked about were often stuff between balls and mustard. Those moments are lovely. Nothing short of touching. Despite dealing with a lunatic gun nut and a nymphomatic nurse, the way it's presented and sometimes what it does present are so real and relatable that I was, honestly, sitting there with a lump in my throat. And for comparison, this was me during Titanic.
There's a boat. Jack.
Get on the door. Get on the door. There's room for you on the door. Get on the door. There can be several people on that door. It's a big fancy. Get on the door. Get on the door. Mexican families have come to America on doors like that.
Where's a boat?
Fucking serves you right, you fuck. Obviously, being a curious guy, I talked with Luke about this, and he told me he was dealing with some rough stuff with his girlfriend at the time when he made those strips. And man, that's the best. No. Not that he was going through some rough stuff with his girl. No, that's horrible. But rather that he managed to take that raw, hard emotion and turn it into the stuff we see in the comic. 'Cause it shows. You can feel it. It's so simple and clean. There are no over-the-top build-up, no outright villainous acts done. It's simply just one of the partners contemplating whether he's good enough for the other. That to me is what defines good writing. When it's raw. When it's just that and no bullshit. It's the same reason why I fucking hate poems. The jokes in the early years of Balls to Death were also rather hit or miss. Most of the time hits though. Sometimes it's clear that Luke is doing some sort of in-joke, and because you don't know what the joke is, you're just sitting there raising your eyebrow. It's like when your friends have had some super fun episode and you're left out wondering what the fuck has happened.
Pussy on the chain wax? Is that a thing?
For the most part though, the jokes are really good, and I was several times kinda amazed just how much mileage Luke McKay got out of the whole insane balls and nymph mustard. But don't go thinking that's the only thing Mustard and Balls gets up to, or even think that those are the only two we follow in this comic. You won't freaking believe the type of shit these guys get up to. Everything from doing the actual work and giving superheroes the credit, to trying and understand Balls to mitigate an alien threat by sentient flesh-eating space blenders. Yep. I wrote that. I actually fucking wrote that. I even had to read the comic over several times just to make sure that was an actual thing and I wasn't tripping on acid. It's hard not to love the comic, if only for its raw, hard charm and the sheer imagination that has been put into it. It's so unlike everything you've ever seen before, making the comic win you over on that alone. One moment Boss is invading secret organizations to save the world from a supervillain, and the next Mustard is dating Boss's doppelganger. The comic has 2 speeds, and none of those are standing still. Balls to Death has so much potential that I can't help but feel is as of yet still untapped, and I honestly think that because we've seen so many different sides of the comic. I can't help but think that the comic is playing it safe at this point. Unlike Les Linda's that tried to go everywhere, this feels more like a comic that's afraid to go anywhere, despite every door it could go through would lead it to something amazing. Don't get me wrong, it's still very, very good, but it's like watching a boxer getting second place just because he only used his left arm. We all know it could have been so much better if it just used its full potential. It's kind of weird saying this comic plays itself, especially with how often it'll straight up mention like how the kaiju Balls is shooting some kind of liquid out of himself and onto the city, and we can only guess what it is, but that's the feeling I get from this comic. It feels safe. It feels like no real risks were taken. It feels like Luke never wanted this to be more than just a humor comic or a side project, which I can respect, but at the same time it's like passing a gold mine simply because your initial destination was not down there. Sure, it might not be what you set out for, but that doesn't mean it can't develop into its own thing. So really, the premise of Balls to That is really good, and I can warmly recommend it. It's just a shame that you can easily feel that it's someone's side project. To be absolutely fair, at around page 400, Luke just, straight up just made 100 adventure comics, so it's not like he's shying completely away from it. All I can say is that those were the strips I personally enjoyed the most. But you know what they say, different strokes for different folks. And hey, it's not like the others were bad either, so there's really something for everyone here. Just know that we should totally have more adventure strips, and if you disagree with me, then you're wrong. Also, just gonna do a little shilling here at the end. Freaking buy the books and have it in your bathroom, or on you when you go on a bus or a train for a short while. Because the comic is made as it is, it's ideal for just picking up, reading a strip or two, and then move on. Just don't be surprised if people give you weird looks if they hear you taking a dump, giggling to yourself. It's clearly in the art department where this comic scores its main points. I love Luke's drawing style. Everything has this cartoony edge to it, and any more charm you'd put into this would make it burst over. And while you know how much I love when you can see someone's art style improve, I'm so happy that the changes Balls to That has gone through are extremely minimal. The only real changes I can think of is that Balls' sideburns have been toned down, there's more change and variation in the background. Once again, we have a perfect example that your art style doesn't have to be super detailed for it to be amazing. In case you haven't seen the video yet where I received these books, let me just recap real quick. I received these comics, and being brutally honest, the name Luke McKay didn't exactly ring any bell to me. It was there in the back of my mind, but I didn't really mention it. But when I fished out the books from the envelope they came in, I could have sworn I'd seen the art style before, despite having never heard of Balls to That. It turned out where I remembered the style from was Luke's Rooster Teeth comics that I hadn't read in a year or two at that point. Try and imagine that. I was able to recognize an art style depicting something completely different that I had last seen more than a year ago. And this is not just because I got a photographic memory. This is all thanks to Luke's style. Another example is that I once caught wind of Luke streaming with his buddy Enzo, the hilarious creator of Cheer Up Emo Kid, and they were showing off a comic with furries. Now, I came into this stream right in the middle, so I had no idea what I was looking at, but I immediately knew this was Luke's art style. Think about it. His style is so much his own that he can draw a cartoony bunny and draw Jeff from Rooster Teeth, and you're still able to see it's the same dude's art. It's time like this where I wish I had the technical know-how to make a stamping effect that said, "Now that's skill." I don't, so you'll have to make do with this. The very first thing that probably catches your attention when looking at Balls to That is that you can see the art sketches underneath the inked lines. This is applicable with everything, be it houses, chairs, clothes, people, anything. Now, when I first saw this, I immediately feared another thing like Mega Tokyo, in which I wouldn't be able to see what was going on due to the sketching going wildly out of control. Well, I didn't, most of all because there was actual inking done here and the sketching is not out of control. In fact, you hardly notice it's there after a few 10 pages. It's clear it doesn't need to be there, but it more than helps adding to the raw charm of the comic. The point where you've turned your lack of work into something good, you might just be a genius. And just where the hell were you to teach me this stuff in college? Now, I can't give you a specific reason for this. I can just go with my gut feeling, but it honest to God feels like, when looking at the art, that you can feel that Luke enjoys drawing. It feels like he's having a blast making these things. Like I said, I can't tell you why or how I reached this conclusion, but I sure hope I'm not the only one feeling that, cause if other people than me get that impression when looking at this art, then those same people will hopefully feel as happy as me when flipping through these pages. I mean, I was several times catching myself smiling way before reaching the punchline of these strips. I just felt happy from reading them. I can't recall the last time my art has made me feel that. People have said that true art is distinguished by what feelings they can make the viewer feel. And if that's the case, shit, Luke's art just might be, real legit art. As opposed to the stuff I keep finding in art galleries that only manages to make me feel confused and annoyed. Where some schmuck has thrown white paint at a white canvas and then calls it art. Where do I begin with this art? I mean, what do I love the most? Is it Ball's design? Is it Mustard's? How about everyone's facial expression in general? Perhaps it's the backgrounds? Maybe it's the kinetic flow? Heck, it might even be all the details that really didn't have to be there, or hey, maybe it's that you can still see the sketch lines under the inking. The list of things I love about this art is almost endless. And just to prove a point, Luke, did you by any chance steal any of this from other comics?
Nope.
I'm glad we could clear that up. So let's just take it from the top. Ball's design. Here's a personal thought. This right here, this is a shitty design. This right here isn't. This is shit. This isn't. Shit. Good. In case you didn't catch it, the thing that makes a shitty design is when you are trying way too hard to make something stand out. If we return to Titus, yes, that's how you pronounce it, shut up, why the fuck did he have to have one pant leg longer than the other? Why a glove on only one arm? Why the open shirt? Why is the shirt so short? Why a weird pattern on, again, only one arm? This is all done for the sake of making him stand out more. It feels unnatural, it feels forced, it's overkill. I know it's the Blitzball uniform, but it still looks dumb and could be done way more simple. If you look at a good design, let's look at Chia here. Sports jacket, short hair, school skirt, that's it. You don't need more than that. You can still easily pick Chia out from a lineup of characters, despite her not, having weird spikes and shit coming out of her clothes. In case you haven't guessed it yet, I also think Balls has a great design. He's literally just a dude with a white tank top, pants and a ton of bandages, but it all comes together so nicely. Heck, give me a wig and a roll of band-aids and bandages and I'll be able to cosplay this dude easy. I mean, I'm pasty and white enough to pull that off. Mustard? Well, let's just roll the clip, shall we?
Hello, this.
Hubba frigging hubba. Black hair, purple highlights, white skin, dark eyeshadow, stockings, boots, black lipstick, and a bad attitude. Sign me the fuck up for whatever examination gets me on her table. I don't care if she technically looks like a stripper, and she should keep that little nurse thing on her head. I'm done with Mustard, although I do prefer my hot dogs without it. Anyway, Mustard's design is equally as good as Ball's. It's simple, it's cute, it's freaking hot. And heck, if I had a nurse that looked like that, I'd periodically throw myself down a flight of stairs. I got so many issues that my issues have issues. As you can tell, the designs in this comic are stellar. Balls and Mustard aren't even the pinnacle of them. Everything in this comic has charm and everything looks good. My favorite design is clearly Mustard, but my favorite waifu of this comic, you'll have to wait for the characters to see that. Anyway, just looking at this, I hope you can see where I'm coming from. It's cartoony, but unlike any other style I've ever seen. I truly, hand to God, hope that I will someday see animation done with this art. The most interesting thing about this art style is that you can literally use it for anything. Comedy? Sure. Action? Drama? Hell yeah. Heck, I'll put money on the table and say you can even use this style for horror. So hey, I'll go as far as to say that Rooster Teeth has a golden goose in Luke here. You see what I did there? You see? Because Rooster and a goose? They're both birds! How the crap am I up to 4 seasons with this shit? Another thing about the art I love is its presentation. To show how random Balls is, he'll often be doing weird crap or be in weird positions when the strip starts, and the comic will not address it at all. Like, a joke about lunch can easily be done while Balls is down a manhole, and the only thing mentioned about the hole is that he is indeed down a manhole. That's it. Rarely to ever will 2 characters just be walking or talking while dishing out the joke, or just sitting there talking over dinner. Usually, both characters are doing something. This is something questionable content could learn a lot from. It shows care, interest, and energy put into the work, and in turn makes it more enjoyable to read. It's almost like the more work you put into your comic, the better it is. I'm looking really hard in your direction, Jackie, Nick, and Leo Ian. Looking really hard. While the comic doesn't have any colors, its use of shading and effects are surprisingly good. You always get what is, and it's almost like you can feel what color the various things should originally have. The characters are just done so well and drawn so great that it wouldn't make sense for them to have other colors than they do. I can't, for example, picture balls with red hair. In fact, and this might be bold to say, I kind of think that it serves balls to that well being blue and white. I kind of feel any and all colors you could add to this would just make it look worse.
Again, Luke seems to have perfected the art of making less work more beneficial than making more work.
The key word, and I think my closing statement for this comic's art, is one word: passion. And from this passion grows charm, care and love for everything drawn. Because of Luke's passion, the comic doesn't just get away with not being super detailed or uncolored. No, it makes it all the better. Because of Luke's passion, you can tell he went over every line a million times if he had to get it right, which is why every character is always easily recognizable. Because of Luke's passion, love grew for the characters and the world they lived in, and so details in the background appeared and the characters' looks got more defined.
Lillie said somewhat the same thing when I interviewed her and David from Dreamkeepers, that what you need to make it big as a webcomic writer and artist isn't necessarily skill. It's passion. It's to keep going and persevere. And I freaking implore you to, if you ever start doubting yourself, to look at this comic for inspiration, for passion. More money!
Speaking of money, yes, I know I mentioned I had a closing statement before, but one last thing I just gotta squeeze in there. Now, I'm in no way out to point anyone out in a bad light, but let me just turn your attention to these two. This one's Nicone's Caribbean Blue book, and this one here is Luke's Balls to That book. In the Caribbean Blue book, you get the story, thank you page, and that's it. There's hardly, if any stuff at all in this book you won't find elsewhere. In other words, there's no incentive to really buy it, other than supporting the artist, which you totally should. Well, the Balls to That books are completely different. Every single little page of these magnificent books are littered with incredibly cute and charming drawings that most of the time works as an extension to the panels of the individual page. You get so much more for your money. Heck, you even get commentary stuff from the characters themselves.
Again, passion.
Once again, the comic is affected by its back and forth nature. Very much like the jokes and premise, the characters are a mixture of changes and constants. Like, sometimes Balls and Mustard hate each other, and sometimes they love each other, but at the same time you always know that Balls will go through hell and back for Mustard. It's kind of weird really, because it's not like this is ever presented, you just know it from how they're interacting with one another, even if it's calling each other whores or passing each other advances up on a whim.
But then again, my last relationship had my ex-girlfriend elbow dropping me in the groin every night before we went to bed. She was never really the same after the accident.
It's actually surprisingly hard to describe Balls to an extent, even if he's incredibly simple. He is a very impulsive guy and he loves Mustard, and that's basically all we know for sure. Balls is an insane person who also every now and then has his moments of clarity, and typically when it happens is when you get to see him say or do stuff that just makes your heart melt.
And then there's the moments where he's all aboard the crazy train and he will, quite literally, make your heart melt.
Mustard is, in lack of better words, a player. She seems like she's fucking everything from left to right, but her main squeeze is Balls, who she seems to care a little more for than what is professionally acceptable. And despite being a nurse for the mentally unstable, she too seems to have her share of insanity within her.
And that's it. Again, because the characters change so much, it's hard to, establish any characteristics with them.
And it gets increasingly bad when this is the most I can say about the comic's main characters. Like, what else is there to say really? Balls is a master of talking with blenders, and Mustard has a robotic breast that can shoot out nerve gas. And you know what?
As much as I piss and moan right now about there not being any real characteristics, that isn't necessarily a bad thing.
Wait, stop the presses. Hold up, what? Did I just say that this little character in the characters isn't a bad thing? Well, yeah, it's sure not a good thing, but it's not exactly anything you can fault the comic for. Why not, you might ask? Well, that's exactly because this comic is made as it is.
It's for the most part a gag strip comic with no real plot lines, and thus you don't need characteristics. Think about it, did Garfield have super deep characters? How about Calvin and Hobbes? They had enough character to give you an idea of what to expect from them, but never so much that there were really anything to talk about. Garfield was hungry and Calvin was a rule-breaking kid. I'd just grown so used to cover comics with an actual plot, and gag strip comics rarely has this much charm. Now, originally I figured I wouldn't score this comic on its characters. As you might remember, if you've been a long viewer of this show, I didn't do so for Cyanide and Happiness either. But truth is, there are actual plot stuff in this comic sometimes, and thus it'd be unfair to just ignore the characters. So instead, I'm just gonna cover them real quick instead of not at all. Okay, I'll be honest, I just want to talk about my waifu. Colonel Sugar, my waifu. Now it's hard to describe just why I love Sugar here so much. I guess I just have a thing for girls in uniform. I just love how she basically acts like a guy. She shoots a bunch of stuff, cracks jokes about sex, and has a lay with someone whenever the moment's right. You could easily gender swap this character and it will be the exact same. That, and she looks super fucking sexy as all hell. There's something about a woman who can walk away calmly from an explosion while changing clothes. I have really weird tastes. Alright, so, lightning round. Maxine is another nurse at the institute where Balls is. She is more down to earth than Mustard and has the hots for balls. General So is the evil villain, in case you couldn't tell, that is trying to take over the world. Dr. Rind is the straight man of the Institute who seems to be in cahoots with the villains, although he may not know it himself. There's the Blender, which is a part of a space species of alien blenders trying to take over Earth. Don't ask. There's Randy Richard, who's a private detective that solves crimes and gets wannabe superheroes the credit, and then there's Dino Guy, who is one of such superheroes. And that's about it. That's all the characters, and that's pretty much all there is to say about the characters. As you might be able to tell, there's not exactly enough character to base a character study on, but there's enough to fulfill their role in the comic for comedic purposes. And when you work with a comic like this, what more do you really need? The premise is a 7. Sometimes the jokes just seem weird and doesn't really have much substance behind them. They feel like in-jokes, but the rest of the times the jokes are funny and the stories are good. It's constantly amazing just how much Luke gets out of the simplest and weirdest things, and considering every little thing this comic covers, it's amazing he hasn't run out of imagination yet. The art is a 9. I know, you're thinking it's a little much. It's basically seeing I gave Ava's Demon the same verdict in the last episode, but Luke's art is just so bloody charming. It's personal, it's unique, it's creative, and it's never lazy. If not for the story, I suggest just reading this comic just to see the amazing art. I might even go as far as to say that Luke might just be my personal favorite artist I've covered on this show. The characters are a 4, but I won't let the grade take away from the final verdict too much. All in all, the characters are rather boring. They establish behavioral patterns only to break it immediately afterwards. Maybe that's because Boss is insane and insane people are typically random, but even the non-insane people act like this. It's a shame, like I said, when you can tell there could have been much more. All in all, the reading experience is a 7. It's a great read, and like I said, perfect for just finding 4, give a quick read and then put away again. For this exact reason, it's nothing out of the ordinary. It's sometimes cruel, it's sometimes cool, it's sometimes funny, it's sometimes sad, it's sometimes serious, and it's sometimes funny. But one thing you can't take away from it is that this comic has amazing art, has something for everyone, and is well worth a read. For a side comic, you could do so much worse. Boss to that is well worth the read, if only for the amazing charming art. Knowing that Luke has future projects in mind, I can't wait to see what he'll give us. Hopefully it'll be something with an actual storyline. I see you guys in the next Webcomic Relief. Take care. You know what? Maybe I should be like Balls. Maybe I should just, be crazy. Yeah, fuck it, let's do it. Let's be crazy. Let's open this. What's the worst thing that could happen? Maybe some chopped off little bunny legs. I mean, crazy fans have been known to do that, right? I mean, it's probably maybe it's a fan drawing. Hey, maybe it's more comics. Maybe it's. This video really took much longer than I first wanted it to, and I can only apologize to the people who were waiting for another episode. But, well, real life stuff happened and that had to be taken care of. I realized in my last video that it kind of dragged on for a really long time when talking about these patrons, and to be fair, I only promised like a sentence or two, so I'm just going to cover all of these amazing people because there's even more this time. Cover all these amazing people and their projects really fast. So let's not waste any time and then just fucking go with it! First of all, we got Luraiokun, who is making Yav. Yav is a romance with furries, from the looks of things. It's very well drawn, and I can warmly recommend that at least that you check it out. Shannon TJ works on Control Freak. Control Freak will come out sometime this fall, and you can periodically go to her DeviantArt and you will find small little sneak peeks of what's to come. I'm personally looking very much forward to this. There is Skidd, who doesn't need any introduction at this point, I think. Skidd is one of the creators of UberQuest, which has passed 100 strips, so you really got something good to look at there. Next up we got Angel Povedano Ruiz. Angel is making Destined Flames. You know what's really hard to make? Action comics. And I would know, I made some myself. Angel, however, seems to be doing this really well. He's really good with all these action scenes, with fighting and all that stuff. And also, a thing that I discovered that just really stood out to me is that this comic has really, really good pacing. So check it out. We got Triss. Triss is working on Utopians, which was before a comic, but is now going to be a video game. And it really looks interesting and it's well on its way, so go check that out. Nana Newcomb is working on a comic called Blackbird. Blackbird is about a young superhero in a city where supernatural stuff starts to happen. The comic seems to be really mature, so I'm always interested in seeing, mature handled superheroes. Like I watched Watchmen for the 8th time last night just to, prove a point. We got Alyster Vain, who is working on Tag, which is a science fiction drama comic with furries, where two sides are fighting, and of course, like I keep comparing it to Romeo and Juliet. There are two people within these different sides who care for each other. And so they kind of have to make that work. I really can't wait to see more from this, and hopefully we'll get to see some soon. We got Alix J. Alix J works on Dev's My Bitch. Dev's My Bitch is a comic that kind of takes a different standpoint when it comes to Dev. It starts dealing with it as if it's routine. It's where it's basically just your job to take care of Dev. And really, I really want to see more of this comic. So go check it out if you are like me and want to see someone dealing with some really serious stuff really well. We have CloudyDaze. CloudyDaze, as you may remember if you watched the last video, is working with some awesome people in making a game with yanderes. You know, the chicks who are super crazy about you. The game has changed name to Lovesick, and it's a tongue-in-cheek game about yanderes who eventually just goes nuts. I can't wait to see this because I personally prefer yanderes to tsunderes, but well, that's just me. Shane Asher. Shane Asher works on Strays of Seraria, and it's a very, very, very energetic superhero comic with furries. It's told really well. Shane has taken a lot of great inspiration from David Lillie and other great writers, and it shows. So really, go check it out and see what you think. And in this episode, we also have a mystery box being Francisco. As always, well, it's not exactly the first time, but every so often people pledge the $10 thing to me, and I am supposed to push their product. They don't present me with any product to present. So for now, let's just say that Francisco is working on making a real-life Metal Gear, and you should go check Francisco's Patreon out that I will throw a link to in the description. And of course, we got the rest. We got Shiv, Ghostlight Studio, LizzieShiro, Gage, and David Lillie. If you want to support this show, you can do so on the Patreon. Just go to www.patreon.com/riseup. You can pledge any amount you want, and remember, you don't have to. Also, as of late, I've increased the amount of people who can pledge to the $25 pledge. So if that was something you wanted but were kind of bummed out that it was taken, well, there's room for it now. Once again, let me remind you, you don't have to do this. The show will continue nevertheless, but I am forever thankful if you do. And really, if you don't want to support the show on Patreon, well, that's fine with me. I'm just happy that you watched it to the end. And if it wouldn't trouble you all that much, leave a like, subscribe, and maybe share it with your friends, because, well, I want to get out there. I'll see you guys in the next Webcomic Relief. Take care.